This MFL Marmac Coach Conversation brought to you by Birdnow Chevrolet, Meyer Auto Service, and Havlicek Trucking. We're with head coach Dan Anderson after the 60-0 win over Clayton Ridge last Friday night. And coach, got to start with special teams with this week. I know the old cliche is making those special teams special. 3 return touchdowns. That's not too bad.
Yeah, it is. When you can return the opening kickoff for a touchdown, it really sets the tone for the game. You know, Clayton Ridge, they kicked off to start the game and they kicked it out of bounds. And we could have taken the ball at the 35 there. And my motto is make them kick it again, penalize and make them kick it again. And we did that last year too. We've got great returners back there. We've got Decker and Powell back there deep, and both those guys have state track speed. So we want them to kick it deep, and we don't want them kicking it out of bounds. And they kicked it off, and Powell actually muffed it a little bit. He dropped it, but he picked it up. And, a lot of it comes down to good blocking. We work that all the time and lock it onto your guy. We don't necessarily have to have big, devastating blocks. We just have to lock onto the guy that they're assigned to, run their feet, mirror the guy. And our backs and our returners are good athletes, and they'll find a crease. And they did. And then, of course, we ran back 2 punts in the first quarter for touchdowns too. So, our defense was playing great. And then they had to punt to Decker and Radloff. And each one of those guys ran back for a touchdown. And just like we blinked and we were up 40-0 starting the second quarter.
And you talk about the blocking on these punts. How much of that is coincide with your return men wanting to get upfield right away and not doing a lot of dancing? Because oftentimes when you see penalties in those situations, it's because the return man's going this way, that way, every which way but loose. Your guys want to get upfield.
Sure, we do. We teach those guys. Well, first off, number one is catch the ball. Don't let it hit the ground. That's number one thing is if you're a return guy, you got to catch that ball. You got to know how deep those guys are punting. I tell our guys that are kick returners, punt returners, if they don't know how deep on average from watching huddle, kids have access to huddle now, which we didn't have back in the day. If they don't know how deep their kickoff guy, and their punter go, then they're not a kick returner for me. I'm like, how deep do they kick it to? If they say, I'm not sure, I'm like, get out of there, get me somebody else. That's their job. Their job is to make sure they're back there. They're good athletes. We've got a lot of good athletes. And when they catch that ball, they need to get north and south and trust their blockers are going to be there. And then they did that. Those blockers were there, and those guys are athletes, and they can find a seam. And we made Clayton Ridge pay in every way. On special teams, offense, defense. We were sharp on Friday night.
Well, we didn't have the internet back in the day either, Dan, but let's not digress and focus on that too much. Offensively, 300 yards rushing, and nobody had to touch the ball more than 5 times. Is that an ultimate utopia for you?
Sure. When I think we looked at it, and I think our starting backs between our fullback, running back, and wing back, I think they had 7 carries. And our second and third teamers had 18 carries. And so we had a lot of guys, young guys, getting a chance to carry the ball. We had, a lot of freshmen and sophomores carrying the ball in a varsity game, which was exciting for them. I was really pleased with our offensive line. Not only our starters, but even our second teamers did a really nice job opening up holes for those backs. And those backs, went in there comfortable. They knew that those linemen were going to do that job. And so, guys like, Deal and Meyer and Hersman and the McElwain brothers and Schulte, those guys, big, strong guys up front, open up some big holes. But again, with special teams and defense, we were able to put up so many points in that first quarter that a lot of those guys only played about a half. And then we got a chance to get a lot of young guys in there.
And defensively, you've touched on it already, but you only gave up 1.3 yards per rush, 38 yards of total offense, 9 tackles for a loss, and 4 sacks on Friday night. Can't do a lot better than that, can you?
No, I don't know what else we could do. We didn't have any fumble recoveries. We had a Decker actually had a pick, but they said he was on the sideline when he picked it off, and he was kind of bummed about that. But yeah, we made it pretty tough for him. In their defense, their starting quarterback was out for the game. And so they had a new guy in there, and we wanted to rattle him a little bit, so we brought some pressure, and we didn't want him to get comfortable back there. And we definitely didn't make it comfortable for him. We brought some heat from different angles. And, we had some tackles for loss and trying to make him throw off his back foot. And I think he only completed 1 pass in the whole game for 5 yards. And so, our DBs did a good job. Our linebackers and D-line did a great job getting pressure and, gap responsibility. A lot of it comes down to knowing your responsibility, trying to keep it simple. We have a few automatics, on Mondays and Tuesdays, we're just drilling it over and over. It's good tackling, but defense, a lot of it's about being in the right place all the time. It's not being out of position. And our guys, I go back and film and I watch to see where we ever, where we gap sound all the time. And on Friday night, at least for our starters, we were gap sound, I believe, almost 100% of the time where we needed to be. And so that, if a team's going to beat us, they're just going to be physically going to have to be more talented than us. And, on Friday night, that wasn't the case. Clayton Ridge had a lot of younger guys. We were the bigger, more physical team, and it showed on Friday night.
And when you have a game like that where things click early and they click often, sometimes the mentality isn't there throughout the full 48 minutes. Were you happy with how your guys were able to handle a situation like that? Granted, you got a lot of younger guys into the game, but I'd imagine you want those guys playing with the same mentality when they're given the opportunity as your number ones and number twos, correct?
For sure, yeah. And, trust me, those guys that were starters, they reminded those younger guys, we got a shutout going. We want to keep the shutout, and they were in their ear. But I tell you what, I think that Clayton Ridge had negative yardage at halftime. In the second half, the second teamers only gave up around 38 to 40 yards of total offense. And so that's one thing when we've got depth. We're a 1A school, but we got good depth this year. A lot of guys that can play. And so at some of those positions, there's really not much of a drop off. I mean, in any team, your number ones, your starters are starters for a reason. But, we've got some really talented kids that are backing up some other guys that other years probably would have been starters. And so when they get an opportunity out there, they want to shine. And I told those guys, when you get in, if you're a sophomore or something, you might only be in for 2 or 3 plays. So you better make the most of it because we'll have it on film. And those guys played really well too. And they were tackling, they were flying to the ball. We had, freshmen that were playing some DB that were diving and knocking down passes and things like that. They're giving a great effort. And what was nice to see is that the older guys were there. They were still engaged, cheering on the younger guys. And, they weren't over there, sitting on the sidelines, not paying any attention. They were all involved. They're all cheering for each other. And it was a total team win for everybody. And our scout team did a great job of getting our varsity ready, for the game on Friday night too.
And it's back on the road this week as you travel over to Osage. What do you expect out of the Green Devils?
They're a good football program. And, last year they're a 2A school. So we're going up a class, playing another bigger school. Last year they were district champions and in 2A. So we're going against a really talented program. They've got most of their team back from last year. Last year we beat them in a nail biter. We scored on a 98-yard touchdown pass with about a minute left in the game to take the lead. I think we were down 28-27, down by a point with a minute and a half left. And we scored on a long pass to get the win. But these guys have got most of their guys back. They've got back 4 of their 5 starting linemen. They got their quarterback back, their running backs back. And not only that, they got 2 guys that transferred in from other schools that I'm like, who are these guys? They weren't even on their team last year. They got a 225-pound running back, outside linebacker that wasn't on the roster. And they got a kicker. It's like a 4-star that's booming in the end zone and kicking 40 and 50-yard field goals on a 1A school. Pretty impressive. So, they're the rich get richer, I guess. So, we're going to go over there. We believe that we're a physical football team. The kids know that. And Osage did lose last week. And our kids know that the team they lost to was another team that runs wing T like us. So, we're a physical team. And if we're going to win this game, we got to just be the more physical team because Osage has got a lot of talented athletes, a lot of speed like us. But, if we're going to win the game, we have to be the more physical team.
All right, Coach, congrats on the win last week. Hopefully you can get another one on the road this week. We wish you best of luck. Keep your kids healthy. Thanks for your time, as always.
All right. Thanks, Darren. Appreciate it.
This coach conversation from the MFL Marmac perspective brought to you by Havlicek Trucking, Meyer Auto Service, and Birdnow Chevrolet.